Now, explaining the statement of Yisro, that they had intended to do to them happened to the Egyptians. Amru Razal, our sages said, Beperak Kama de Sota, Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph Bekadera Shebishlu Bani Spashlu. In the pot that they wanted to cook them, they themselves were cooked. Again, this is still part of the Kitzur of the Maamar, going over this part of the Maamar that discussed the Kadera Shebishlu. My mashma, what's the intention? The Zadu Lishna de Kadera who. How is this the word Zadu, a language of cooking in a pot? Who deceive, like it's written, Vayazed Yaakov Nazid, that Yaakov cooked a stew. Ubishirashim Shem Shnei Shirashim. And in the Hebrew root, there's two roots here. Zadu Lashon Mezi. The first is that it's from the language of intentional, Ubishirash Zod. And it's from the Shorosh Zayin Vav Daled. And according to the Shorosh Yesha, it's because you have a desire for the thing, so you do it intentionally. And the Radak writes in Michlol that they had intention against them. And the Radak continues that our sages use this language a lot. They called mazid somebody who does something intentionally. Nazid, in the concept of the dish, the stew of nazid, kasfu b'shorish nezed, that's in the shorish not zayin vav dalid, but nun zayin dalid. Mashi pirusho tavshil, that it's a dish. I know my v'yazid Yaakov nazid, that Yaakov cooked a dish. B'melachim beisim dalid lamed ches ubashel nazid levnei hanavim. So that it's written, and you should cook a dish, a stew for the sons of the Nevi'im, v'targum Yonasan ubashel tavshila. And the Yonasan translates, and cook a dish. V'gemara Hebrew mezid lebishul, and the Gemara attaches these two together, the intention to the cooking. V'ha'inyan, and the concept is the isa b'me'orei or uskuf sif lamed beis kadera nikra malchus, that the pot is called malchus. Kabishul nikra zivug, because the cooking is called the union tochzos hakadera, inside of the pot. Adganashona, that's the end of the quote from the Radak in Michlol, or in Me'orior. No, that's the quote from the Me'orior. That it's malchus and so forth. Like it says in Me'orior, Osamach Sir Nikrah Malchus, that the seer, which is also a pot, is called Malchus. Fabasar mitzbashel ba, and the meat that's cooked in it, who ayisod, that's the yisod, habasar achai, the living flesh, adganashona. That's another quote from the Me'orior on seer. Both Beis Yif Yud Gimel Kasav, and the Me'orior further says on Os Beis basar. What is basar? Who ayisod? That's the yisod. The masculine aspect of the source of flow. Shikulo basar. Why is it called the basar? Because it's completely meat. Vein bo etzem, and it does not have a bone. This simon called basar, and the sign for this is all flesh. Adganashono, all basar will come to bow down. And that's the concept of all flesh will come to bow down. The fourth book, Tafkuf Samach Daled Shel Kavod Duch Dibur Maskala having Tosef is Bir Shoreshin Kmaim Panim Lepanim Dafkuf Memalaf Amud Aleph. And I'm not sure exactly what that reference is. It's some mimer of the Alter Rebbe. At any rate, it says there, to understand well the concept of the union of the feminine waters and the masculine waters, the zun of Zan Nukfa, So to understand the concept of supernal unity in general, that is, we can preface first the idea of Gאולה being next to Tefillah, that we say Goal Yisrael and then we daven right away. That's also a concept of union of Yesod and Malchus. Until our sages said concerning having the Gאולה next to the Tefillah at the nighttime, davening the Gאולה Aриכתה, that even though there's a bracha in between, it's like one long redemption. The Gאולה Aриכתה, so that's the lengthening of the Yesod, of the masculine Yesod, like the hardening of the flesh. At any rate, so Tefillah is Malchus. Like it's written, Vani Tefillah, like it says, and I am Tefillah, and the concept of Ani is Malchus. And this is when you say, Adonai should open my mouth, or open my lips. That Adonai is Gematria Heichel. That's the Holy of Holies of the world of Bria. The Gאולה hasmucha, and the Gאולה that's next to it, who bebichnis Yesod Ziranpin. That's the concept of Yesod of Zah, the masculine concept. Shinikra Goel Israel, that's called the Redeemer of Israel. Like it says, if you will be redeemed good, or if good will redeem you, the concept of Tov is also Yesod. Because there's after Kriya Shema, the concept of the Kriya Shema is the different Heichalos, Heichal Ratzon, Heichal Ava, and by Shemon Esrei is Heichal Kodesh Kadashim. So the union of the feminine waters and the masculine waters of Zah and Nukva, of the emotional attributes of the masculine concept and the feminine, in the Heichal Kodesh Kadashim, which corresponds with the Gula and Tefillah together, Tachlis HaYichud, in a complete unity, Vahiskalulu Zeh B'zeh, in the union one with the other, Azai Nikra Gula Aриכתה. Then it's called a long Gula. That is to say, that the feminine waters of the feminine aspect, they're not in existence on their own at all. To the point where the Gאולה of the Yesod, of the masculine aspect, is seemingly the only thing there. It's the only Redeemer. Only the feminine waters here, the Tefillah, is considered part of the Gאולה because of its inclusion and nullification into the masculine waters. And both of them together, the feminine and the masculine here, are considered one long redemption. Because if you unite the receiver into the giver, you certainly have added some kind of glimmer. So what kind of glimmer is added to the masculine if that's the only thing there, and the feminine becomes included in it? So what kind of extra light do you have? You draw down from higher. You draw down a light from Bina. That's actually where the redemption comes from. That's the source of the redemption, is in Bina, not in Zah. Therefore, when you unite Malchus into Gאולה, into the Zah, you draw down from Bina, which is the real redemption. So that's why you have a long redemption, I guess, because you're drawing down from the source of it. Because like the Pardi says on the concept of redemption, that is a revelation from Bina. But when they're united together, it's considered one redemption. It's only because it's called a long redemption. And to explain this concept, So this whole idea of Ga'ula Areichta is the Chiddush in the קיצור here. That is not in the body of the Maamar. So to explain this idea, so we explained above that from the feminine waters of the feminine aspect, which is already confines the lights to put the boundaries to creation from the flow through the feminine concept of Hashem's kingship into creation. It creates the boundaries, so to speak. So it truly creates this concept of emanation of the world of Atzilus, when the masculine waters unite with it. And the likeness of this are the sacrifices that are on the altar. That the fire from above would eat them, and the animalistic souls would be burnt up and included in the fire above. So that's like Malchus uniting with the masculine aspect, like the fire from above. They become one, the fire from below and the fire from above. That's why Korban is from the language of closeness and unity, that it's also a concept of union of the masculine and the feminine, of uniting above and below. So too with his supernal spiritual altar, the Atzilus of the higher world, that the angel Michael, so to speak, offers up the souls upon the supernal altar. I'm not sure how he says that this is Nasa Mimena Bechinas Atzilus. It's a little confusing, that statement, that from this union you create Atzilus, because it seems to be that this is part of the process of elevation and union, and not the formation of the world of Atzilus. So, but perhaps it'll become clear. At any rate, the concept is that the souls are elevated in the concept of feminine waters, within the fire above, the duchur of the masculine. They become one, and that is to say, Kamaimar, like the statement, lishtava begufa de malka, to attach oneself to the body of the king. And with this inclusion, the feminine waters are changed from one essence to another, because they've become attached to above. That's the end of the quote from the Alter Rebbe in the Maamer Panim L'Panim, that waters, when you have a reflection of the face in the waters. So I guess it's this concept of the union and the masculine looking towards the feminine, and vice versa. And this is compared to the korbanos and so forth. So now back to our Maamar with his concept of B'davar Shir Zadu, with the cooking of the meat, the kadera in the pot, Shia Malchus, which is, the pot is Malchus. That they should be to one flesh. I wonder if there's some kind of connection with the idea of that when you measure against something treif that falls into a pot, you don't want to do 60, you can measure together with the pot itself. Everything that went into the pot, and the pot and all the stew that's in the pot and the meat can all be measured against any milk that falls in. So the pot is becomes one with the meat in the measurement. Just an idea. So at any rate, so the pot and the meat, it's a concept of like the masculine and the feminine become one thing. And this is like the concept of all flesh should come and bow down in the Beis Hamikdash. שהבשר שהוא מבחינת יסוד האש יובל לבחינת השתחווה וביטל שהוא אצילוס. That all the flesh, which is the concept of yisod, of fire, should come to a state of bowing down, a nullification, which is the world of Atzilus. So that's like explaining that statement, that it becomes Atzilus, because it gains a extra level of bittul through this union of the fire and the korban, or the masculine and the feminine uniting. And I guess also the concept of the ketera, the concept of malchus in general, is more a concept of bittul. So I guess the masculine uniting with the feminine is that the feminine gives a bittul to the masculine. It nullifies it, gives it in a state of selflessness, and therefore it elevates it as well to the concept of atzilus, of emanation. I guess that's the concept of atzilus as well. It's the world of bittul. So if that's the case, then this pot that was cooked in that you have this opposite this, bishul basar besade treifa, that they wanted to cook us in the other pot, the pot of meat that is treif. That's the other concept of meat. Basar besade treifa, that's in the Torah, you'll find that expression of basar also in the negative. Shezeu hepech habitl anal, that's the opposite of bitl. That's the ketera shebishlu. That's the pot. The malchus of klippa, I guess, is the opposite of the malchus of kedusha of bitl. That when you have a union of the masculine and feminine in klippa, it breeds yeshus and self aggrandizement and existence in opposition to the holiness. The bechinas yavo kol basar li'ishtachvos. It's the opposite of all flesh will come and bow down. Al derech basar chamorim besarim, like the expression that the flesh of donkeys is their flesh. Zivug yisod v'nuk for the klippa, the union of the masculine and feminine yisod of klippa. And that from this it comes that the maidservant inherits her matron. That it's not the positive yisod, it goes to the wrong place. I mean, that's the lowliness that, so to speak, is haughty and lifts itself up, puffs itself as if she's the matron. That's the shifcha ki tirash gevirta. And with this you can understand the concept of mesid, that what kind of sin is done intentionally. Who gorim yichud yisod v'nuk for the klippa. This is a haughtiness that causes the union of the masculine and feminine of klippa. Al derech nazid habishul b'kderechulu, that's compared to cooking the stew in a pot. V'imkin b'kderech bishlu banis pashlu. So, in the cook that they wanted, in the pot they wanted to cook, they themselves were cooked. Kenyan kriyas yamsuf, because the concept of the splitting of the sea, zeu zivug ha'elyon, that's the supernal union, the kedusha and holiness. That's why it says that the sea returned in the morning to its strength. What does it mean, to its strength? Leitano. Our sages say letanayo, to, don't read it eitan, read it tanai. Read it as a stipulation. Eitan who yisod, because the concept of eitan, which means strength, also means yisod. The hardening of the member is the eitan. But it's also kamushkas of maskila eitan, like it says maskila eitan. The flow of intellect from above is the concept of yisod. And then the Egyptians sunk into the masculine and feminine of the klippa. They themselves were cooked, so to speak, in that pot. Because instead of their pot, we had the pot of holiness, the supernal union that opposed their union of the klippa. They fell into it, into their own pot. Zadu lashon mezid kumo hizidu aleim. So I mean, it's sort of interesting. They have this idea of the tashlich, where you send down the sins, and that's like the Egyptians, so to speak, were also sent down, because just because you have this supernal union doesn't mean that they're going to sink down into the zun of klippa. But that's the idea, that it seems to be like tashlich, that the bad goes down to the klippa. Okay, so at any rate, Zadu Lashon Mezid, so you had that's explaining Zadu from the language of cooking in a pot. But it's also from the language of intentional, Ki Hizidu Alem, like they intended against them. Lashon Nazidu Bishul, and the language of Nazid is a cooking. Gemara the Perish Kibidavar Zadu, and the Gemara that uses this expression, they explain this as using both of these expressions, that they intentionally cooked. Malchus. That the pot is Malchus. And cooking in the pot, that's the concept of the union. Like we said, all flesh will come to bow down. That's the meat that's in the pot that gets a state of bittul through being cooked in the pot. This union, we explain the idea of union of the Ga'ula and the Tefillah, which is yichud manumad, which is union of the masculine and the feminine, that's compared to the korban on the altar, that the burning of the animalistic soul is included in the fire above. So this seems to be a קיצור of the קיצור that we just read through. Korban is from the language of closeness and union, to attach yourself to the body of the king. We explain the idea of the pot that they cooked in, and the meat and the field that's trampled, which is the meat in klippa, yichud and the klippa, which is this idea of the union of the masculine and feminine in klippa. But opposite this is the splitting of the sea, which is this union of the masculine and feminine in holiness, Ba'atika Talya, and dependent upon an even higher concept of Atik, to split the sea, Korban Gematria Erachapayim, just like Korban is the Gematria Erachapayim, hinting to that this union is not just a Zun, but it's also a Gilui of Keser, or like he said before, that it is, he brought that it's a revelation of Bina, which is the Ga'ula Aríchta. He doesn't bring that here, but he seems to be hinting to a similar idea, that to have the union you have to bring from higher, and here he's saying that it's at Atik and Korban Gematria Erachapayim. He brings this concept of Mitzulos Yom, and then through this they drowned the masculine and feminine of Klippa, which is called the depths of the sea. And that's what it means. In the pot they wanted to cook us, they themselves were cooked. They themselves went down into the Zun de Klippa. Now, Sages said, what is this concept of Baruch Shem? Mashal Bas Melech, it's comparable to the daughter of a king. That she smelled the bottom of the pot, the leftovers in the pot. Because the union is called bread. From Asher, his bread was rich from the world to come. So Asher had beautiful daughters, and that's the concept of marriage, as is known, that the idea of bread, the bread that he eats by the story of Yosef. And at any rate, it's all a concept of the world to come. Smelling, this smell from the pot is this concept of the union. And the smell from the food in the pot comes from Keser. Because the second pasuk of Shema, Baruch Shem, is the Yichud Tata. That's instead of his hafcha of flipping the bad, where there's complete bittul, it's iskafia when you bend the bad, when you push it down, that there's sheshbo bittul yoser, and it's known that Baruch Shem has a greater strength of nullification because you have to work for it. More than his hafcha. Like it's known in the Maamar. And they wanted to bring this level down into this to affect the nukva of klipa with the maidservant that would inherit the matron. So this is all a mashal in the medrash for the tzike kedera of the bas melech. Yeah, that corresponds with Baruch Shem. Zohar Chele Gimel Parsha Zacharei Daf Samachtes Amud Aleph. And therefore, so there's a connection between this concept of tzike kedera and the kedera shebishlu banish spashlu. So the Baruch Shem is, I guess, like the daughter of the king. Anyway, let's see if it becomes clear exactly how these two correspond. Because that pot they wanted to cook, they themselves will cook. Because the feminine concept of klippa, its job is to bring destruction to the world. If you want to say, if you want to say, hey, they didn't sink into nukva the klippa, they seem to sink into the Yam Suf. And the Yam Suf is Malchus of Atzilus. That's in holiness. So for the cold darkens, the end of all levels of holiness. We can say, Shari Namar, Yardu bim solus kum oven. That it also says that they sunk into the depths like a stone. Mitzulos Yam Perish Beitz Chaim Shem Zun de Noga. And so this expression of Mitzulos of the sea, the depths of the sea, in Eitz Chaim, it does explain that this does refer to the masculine and feminine of Noga of Klippa. Mitzulos and Yanut Sel Movis. Also, Mitzulos is from the language of the shadow of death. In Shema Yisrael Zeu Inyan Yechudei. Now, Shema Yisrael is the concept of the higher union. Vuhu Ke'inyan Shiluv Shem Adnus B'Shem Havaya. That's the concept of the union of the Shem Adnai in the name Havaya. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam V'Ar Zeu Yechudet Atah. And Baruch Shem is the lower union. Vuhu Ke'inyan Shiluv Shem Havaya B'Shem Adnus. And that's like the union of the Shem Havaya into the name Adnai. So again, this is all in the קיצור. This is all a קיצור of the מאמר. Malchus Zichronos B'Shabbos Sudasa Delelia of Sudasa Diyoma, and the kingships and the remembrances of Rosh Hashanah correspond with these two kinds of unions. And you have, this also corresponds with the night of Shabbos and the day of Shabbos. The Shabbos meal at night and the Shabbos meal during the day. Shabbos meal at night corresponds with Malchus. Shabbos meal during the day corresponds with Zoh. So it's the קיצור, so he doesn't elaborate. At any rate, so the concept of the daughter of the king, we can say, that Malchus, when it's in Atzilus, it's called Tzion. When it's in the lower worlds of that's called the daughter of Tzion. Then it's called the princess, the daughter of the king. And the cooking is the union that it wants to eat. So, but it says that she smells the pot. So what's the smell? That's Kriya Shema. Like it says in the Zohar by the Yenuka that he smelled from their garments. He knew that they did not read Kriya Shema. And it says by Mashiach that he smells the fear of Hashem. V'dugmas ketoris achadasos mimanim, and that's like the likeness of the ketoris that has 11 spices. V'yesh reach bogdav, and it has the smell of reich begadav is also from the language of reich bogdav, from the language of the smell of the tshuva from having done iniquities. Balei Tshuva. Ach, Baruch Shem, Kavod Malchus Vard Bitla Yesh, Nikra Tzikik Dira. But Baruch, so that's Kriya Shema, is the Reach. But the Tzikik Dira is not just the regular pot, but it's the, I guess, the bottom of the pot, or the leftover of the pot. It's not just the meat itself, it's not just the Yichud Zun, but it's the lower union, the Bitla Yesh. Gemara Perakama de Kedushin Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. So on to another concept. The Gemara in Kedushin, my dirsiv, what's this that it's written? Yedu Chavai Kol Malchi Aretz. All the kings of the earth will acknowledge you, Ki Shamu Imrei Ficha, because they heard the words of your mouth. And that's when Kadosh Baruch Hu said, I am your God and there's no other. Amru Ovdei Kochavim. So the idol worshipper said, he's asking for his own honor. And then once he said, honor your father and your mother, so then they went and they admitted the truth, acknowledged the first statements of the Seros Dibros. And the question is asked, but he did do this for his own honor. Hashem does deserve the honor, and he created the world for his honor. Like it says that the whole world will be filled with the honor of Hashem. So what's wrong with that? Like the statement Baruch, that the honor of Hashem should be brought down from its place. That to bring down the revelation of the supernal honor. How everything else is incomparable. And only what's above is the true existence. And that's the concept that Hashem's honor should come down to the world. So it's a good question. But however, our sages said, that the king of honor should come, that he divides and gives honor to those who fear him. And also the tzaddikim, they will say in front of them that they are holy, just like they say in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So he's giving honor to the holy ones, to the tzaddikim. That the eye hasn't seen, he will do for those that hope in him. If so, if this idea that he created for his honor, we can say that they're complaining that he's giving honor to those who fear him. So, if that's the case, then the idol worshippers who acknowledge the creation of the world, they say it's not proper to watch over the lowly, the creations. They call him the God of gods, that he's above and removed. Therefore, instead of honoring him, they honor the astrological signs and the bodies. Even though the statement, you should not have any other in front of me, contradicts this. So that's what they were complaining about. Not that he's giving him honor to himself, but that he's giving honor to the Jewish people and the righteous. And further, that he says, other than me, there's no Elohim. You can't give honor to anyone else. Therefore, because they, so to speak, give honor to these others and give them some kind of place, that's also why they said, that he's asking for his own honor, because seemingly they are not privy, they do not grasp the true unity of Hashem in order to recognize that he alone deserves all the honor, because they think that he's beyond and above, and the truth is that he is the only one who's Mashgiach.